Thanks for tuning in. Today's project, fix the blend doors on this old beast. So the VW blend doors in the Beetle, the Audi TT also, the Golf and the Jetta, all have the same comfort control system. The blend doors are perforated steel. They have large holes in them, and then they're covered with foam. And as that ages, when they're 20 years old or 15 years old, that foam degrades and flakes away. And now the blend doors don't do their job because they're full of large holes. So it doesn't matter which way you put them. So how do you know if you need to recover your blend doors? Well, there's four main symptoms, but you got to be a little bit careful because each of these symptoms can overlap with other problems, with AC problems or heater problems or heater core problems. So you got to look at all of them together and check some other things. But the four main indicators are if the airflow doesn't change as you turn the indicator inside the car for where you want the air flowing on the windshield, on your chest, or on your feet, or a combo. Okay, that could be a broken cable or a cable that's popped off, but it also is an indicator or a symptom of blend doors needing recovered. If you have foam particles come blowing out of your AC or heater vents every time you turn the fan on, that's probably the foam that's covering the blend doors. So that's a pretty good symptom of needing to do your blend doors. The next two are kind of when they're in a combo. So if your AC works and everything else on the AC system is in good shape, but it doesn't blow very cold in the car, that's an indicator or a symptom of your blend doors needing recovering. And then the same thing with the heat. If you turn the heat on and the car's warmed up, so it should be blowing very warm, if not downright hot air, should be coming right out of the vents, but it never really gets hot. So those two together, with the AC not blowing cold and the heat not blowing hot, that combo together is a really strong symptom of the blend doors being bad. So what do? We recover them. We take some tape and tape over all those holes. Now the hardest part of this is getting to them. It's really designed to work when you have the dashboard out of the car and you take that whole module out from underneath the dash that holds the heater core, the AC condenser, on all that kit that's up underneath the dashboard. But we're gonna try to do it without taking that whole unit out. So it's really tough to film. I'm gonna do the best I can, and then I'll try to narrate on top of that to show you what I'm doing. There's a lot of stuff we gotta take out. So this isn't really for the faint at heart. It'll take the better part of an afternoon or the better part of a day to knock this project out. But you can do it. I recommend having a Bentley manual. I recommend that for any VW owner that does any of their own maintenance. And of course it should be for the appropriate model, in this case a Mark IV Jetta. There's a lot of fasteners, and when these cars get this old, the plastic turns brittle, so you'll find a lot of broken tabs. If you're not careful when you're taking stuff out, you'll break more tabs. I know a lot of the tabs are already broken in this car. I'm gonna replace a couple things, and I'm gonna put in a new car stereo, so this is a good time to do it because we have to take that stereo out to access the blend doors. So what do we need to do this project? Well, you need the normal tools that you need to work on the plastics inside the car. A T20 driver is important because there's a ton of T20 screws in there. You'll need a 6mm socket with a couple of extensions, and I'll show you when we get to that how I set up my extensions to try to get to these screws. The blend door cover, I've seen them three different styles. I've seen Phillips, I've seen 6mm bolts. It's really a screw but with a hex head. And I've seen them with Torx on them, and it's usually a T20. So I can't tell you what your car is. It could be any one of those three, but you're gonna need that. Small needle nose pliers is pretty handy, and then you'll need some light to see what you're doing in there. A 13mm socket, a couple of other standard tools. But aside from that, really all you need is tape. All right, there's a lot of different ways you could tape this up. My personal favorite is heavy duty AC vent, like for your house. This plastic It's really it's almost like an aluminum foil tape that has the plastic backing on it. That's the heavy duty stuff. You could use the standard foil duct tape, or yes, duct tape. You could use standard duct tape, but I recommend against it. Or you could use the plasticized fabric duct tape. Remember that those ducts, when you have the heat on full blast, they get really hot in there. And conversely, when the AC is up, it gets very cold. Well, this heavy duty tape is formulated to handle the heat and the cold. So that's why this is my favorite. It's a couple dollars more for the heavy duty type, but it's such a pain in the butt to get to this. I recommend that you do it right. I haven't had much success with the duct tape. It tends to get hot and then start peeling off, and then it's blowing around in there and it blocks stuff and gums everything up. So I really caution you against using standard duct tape. One last disclaimer, this is my technique. It's not an official procedure in any manual. There are different ways to approach it. The more you take apart, the better you can get things out without breaking them. I take a couple of shortcuts here. So you may want to consider, for example, the lower console and the armrest. If you take those out, it's a whole lot easier to get the forward lower console out. I'm going to bypass that and take a little shortcut because there's a couple less screws to take out. But it's up to you how much you want to take apart. There's already a bunch of stuff we got to take out. So if you see me taking a shortcut that you're not comfortable with, by all means, go ahead and take those extra things off. And if I go through it too fast, just look in your manual and that'll show you how to get things off. There's always a hidden fastener, and if you start yanking on a panel and you didn't get all the fasteners out, or you're pulling the wrong direction because there's a tab that goes this way and you're pulling this way, you're just gonna break all that stuff off. A lot of this car is already broken. You'll notice as I'm taking it out, like the glove box, the two side tabs are already broken off. So that gives me different options for how to get it in and out. I don't have to take apart as much to get that glove box out. But if you have a good glove box or you don't know if those tabs are there, make sure you take that outside panel off and check for the screw on the outside, and then the one that's behind the center console, kind of below the stereo there. So take your time, be careful, and make sure you get all the fasteners out. Okay, so here is the cover that we need to remove. And this is actually probably the hardest part of the whole operation. There's two screws, one on each side, that are holding that cover on. And you really can't see them. There's one on this side back here. They're usually a brass color. And then there's one on this side back here. There is a trick to this side, so let me show you. So for the passenger side screw, there's a little trick that you can actually get to see it here. This is the insulation that was behind the glove box. So if we pull this back a little bit, and I'm gonna see if I can get the camera in here. There's a little brass colored bolt. Sometimes it's a screw head and sometimes it's a 6mm. So if you look at my screwdriver tip, that's the bolt or screw that we need to take out. And there's an identical one on the other side. In this case, let me see if I can put a little light in there. There you can see it. In this case, that's a 1/4 inch head. Sometimes they're a Phillips, and actually the Phillips are a little bit easier. So when it's a 1/4, you have two options. Well, there's a myriad of options, but one is to take a wrench and come in here and open it, which is very time consuming because you only get about a quarter of a turn. Here's another option. Depending on the tools you have, if you have a quarter drive flex extension, that'll work. Or in this case, I put a short extension on my quarter socket and then a universal joint and then a longer extension onto my handle. That lets me get around the corner because you can't get a straight on shot of it straight back here. It's almost behind that hole. And sometimes you can actually, when it's a Phillips, you can actually put a screwdriver through that hole sometimes and get to it. But when it's a quarter, you can't fit your socket through that. Okay, now I'm going to try to get you a view of the other side. Bear with me. So I got the light laying underneath, and that bolt right there, a little brass colored one. And like I said, sometimes there are Phillips, which is actually a little easier to get a Phillips screwdriver in here. But in this case, it's a 1/4 inch head. So those are the two bolts we got to wrestle with next. All right, to get the top loose, you have to reach your hand up in through here and just stretch as far as you can with your finger and pop a catch loose. Once I get it out, I'll be able to show you exactly where that catch is because there's no way to film that. But I make as much room as I can, take off my watch or any rings, worm my hand up in there, and you can feel the catches. Once that pops loose, you'll notice it gets a lot looser. And now I can worm it out, and you can see it's just a matter of playing the Tetris to get this out. You get to this point and you're stuck and you can't slide that piece down out. There's two 13mm nuts, or bolts rather. You can take those out and that'll give you just a hair more room to slide that out. That's the tab that clips on up top here. So when I was reaching my hand in from this side to pop the tab, that's all I'm doing is lifting that up, getting that to pop loose. That's probably the hardest thing to get to right there. So now you can see our blend doors in there. See those holes in the silver? That's the blend doors. Normally, that's covered in foam. And then you can see that back one, which allows you to blend the heat and AC. All right, but with those big holes, the air is just gonna go wherever it wants. There's 3 panels that we're gonna cover with tape. This front one is fairly easy. If you pull the yellow cable that you took off your mixing panel, that's fairly easy to get that. And then you can open that one and pull the white cable or push it back and forth so that you can get to those 2 pieces. Okay, we've got them all taped up. I'm gonna see if I can get a little zoom in here. Before you close it all up, make sure you check that everything moves freely. If you get too much tape into the hinge or hanging over the edge, it can restrict the movement of the door. So this one's working pretty good. Okay, and on that back one, you can see I got that surface and that surface. It's actually kind of 2 doors, and that moves with the white wire. All right, those feel pretty good. Full range. And while we're here, let me show you one more thing. If you find that the white wire is not moving the back blend doors, or the yellow wire is not moving the front blend door, then you probably have a broken cable or a cable slipped off. So I'm gonna see if I can get it into the view here. So there's this yellow lever here. You can see that cable needs to be hooked up to the yellow cable to move that front blend door. There I am moving it. So if it's not moving by the control end of the cable, check that lever. And then in the back there, you can see the white one. That's the one that usually falls off. So you got better access now than when everything is together. So make sure that those cables are on there. And that's how it works. Usually, if there's an issue, it's just that this coiled end has slipped off. So all you got to do is pop it back on. And usually you have to bring it on at an angle to pop it back on, just like on the control head. All right, so our blend doors are fixed, and now we can start wrestling with putting it all back together. So as we're putting that cover door back in, remember that you need to get that U-shaped clip around this. These pins need to line up with the holes just below the bolts. And then we've got to engage that tab on the top that goes on the corresponding tab here. But it's really tough because we actually need to put this top duct in first before we start working this in. If you put this one in, you'll never get that top one back in on top of it. And as you're working this in, you'll see the divider here on top. That needs to fit into these clips right here. They don't really clip, they just kind of hold it. So as you're working it in, if you can't get it to sit all the way up and it's not engaging all the way, see if you can get a view down from the top. And get those tabs engaged. You get the rear tabs engaged on that top vent or duct. It helps to put just a little piece of tape just to hold it up in place as you start fitting the bottom cover door on. have my procedure for recovering or retaping your blend doors. I hope this video helped you figure out how to get to them and what you're getting at, because it is kind of a tough job, and you got to take your time, or you'll break stuff, and it can be very frustrating, especially that blend door cover, working that in and all those tabs and the 2 screws on either side. That can be frustrating. So take your time, keep track of your fasteners. You can make yourself notes. You can put tape on stuff to help you remember what goes where and what fasteners go into what holes. Be ready for discovering some broken stuff as you get into it. Like we mentioned before, the plastics on these cars are old now and it's pretty brittle. But I wish you the best of luck in getting yours. I hope it works out for you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content and you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That'll give me support so I can keep working these videos and keep hanging them here on YouTube to help people. If you have a better comment, a better idea, or a question, or you just think there's another way to do it, make a comment, leave it in the comments below. That will help the next guy that watches this video. Maybe I did something wrong, or you know a better way to do it. By all means, put it in the comments and help everybody else out. Thanks again for watching.